We did have a meeting, a special meeting this week, Thursday at Concordia, Missouri, for the bottom half and the east-west side of the state with circuit visitors and one other person. So they asked me to come because I have a dual parish. And it was basically talking about what to do. And he did quote from the handbook about circuit convocations, about actually doing some worthwhile things that would be, but each circuit has to develop their own. Yes, but doing something that's not just a waste of time, but something that would be productive for the whole circuit. Okay, so, I thought, we're going to try this year actually to do something. But, yeah, go ahead. That's a good idea. Wow, that'd be a fun thing to do alongside of it. Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, we are seriously talking about doing it'll be in the fall. And actually, we are going to have we already have it kind of planned out, but I don't know. We're having the DCE was trying to help us with our family ministry coaching thing for our circuit before we call somebody. And they actually have a guy on the call list, and I can't say his name, but you know who he is. I think it'd be great. You have to wait till April, find out. But anyway, no, it's not me. It's not a pastor, but someone and you'll like him. You guys know him. I can't tell. I really want to tell you, I just can't. Okay, I just can't because it's exciting. It's really exciting. Okay. Well, anyway, so the circuit convocation, we're trying to do something that would be kind of kicking off into that. But I did find out at that circuit meeting, or that meeting we had, it wasn't a circuit meeting. I didn't realize this, but our dual parish is actually kind of a big deal in our district. They talk about us in a good way. District officials talk about us. We're the model. We have actually seriously become the model that they said, dual parishes can work, because they're trying to talk churches into doing it. And most churches think a dual parish is one step closer to death. That's the mentality that churches have. If we have to enter in a dual parish, that means we're dying. Okay, and so it's like, no, it can be a really good thing. And so they actually talk about us at the district office, this dual parish we have. So that's kind of neat that we are kind of I didn't know that until they were talking about us, because it's like I was trying to tell people at our table about it, and the district official there say, oh yeah, we know all about that. It was great what you guys are doing, and they talk about it. So that's kind of neat. So hopefully other churches will realize dual parish isn't a death knell. It can be something that can be very positive for them, because we have a bunch of churches that need to be entering into a dual parish. In fact, right now, Cuba and Bourbon is entering into a dual parish. I mean, they are. It's not a discussion. They actually are. Cuba and Bourbon. They are actually in the call process of calling, because both pastors have retired. One retired right after April last year, and the one in Cuba retired December 31st. So they're vacant. So they're calling someone. But I also learned something, by the way, before we actually do our study, is we are ever since COVID, because they kind of did something. We had a breakout session, so we kind of met with Raleigh Circuit, Springfield Circuit, and the Southwest Circuit, which is Joplin area. Okay, anything there. So the bottom half of the state, basically, from us, not anywhere east, us all the way to Nebraska or Oklahoma, Kansas border. And sadly, every church is declining. Almost every church. A couple more growing, like in Branson and maybe Ozark. But otherwise, all churches are declining. And if you look at it, and it's all based upon whatever they sent in. So if you look at it, they went the last 10 years, they were kind of pretty steady. And then 2019 hit, right? COVID hit, they all dropped, and then they kind of just stayed there. So they're not declining since COVID, and haven't got worse since COVID, but we're back to where we were almost, not quite really, but really basically, except for St. James. St. James isn't, because they got all the Raleigh people went there. Okay, they went up, but every church is declining. So it's a sad state going on. So it's not just us. It's not just rural churches. One of the guys was a circuit visitor in one of the inner kind of the inner city section of Kansas City, and they have 4 vacancies there. And only one church is 100 and some people on a Sunday. The rest are like us, which I didn't think that in the Kansas City area that'd be like that. But 41% of the churches average, in the Missouri district, 41% average 50 or less. It was 30% before COVID. It went up to 41% after COVID. And it stayed there. So, I mean, 4 out of 10 are less than 50. And you can't support ministry with just 50 people, less than 50 people.
Is that membership?
That's attendance. That's attendance. Okay. In fact, when we entered into this dual parish, they told us, and we're still getting into this, I'm sorry, but this is important stuff, I think. When we entered into dual parish 30 years ago, they said for a church at that time to support the ministry sufficiently, you need to have an attendance of 80, an average attendance of 80. Okay. Now it's. I know. Well, that's why we have a dual parish. No, because our average attendance is about 100 to 110. That's why we're thriving, because, between the 2 churches, you add them together, it's about 100 to 110. That's why we're thriving. But sadly, even some of these churches are going to enter into dual parishes like Cuba and Bourbon. Even then, together, they don't make 80. It's sad. They're dwindling bad. Churches are dwindling bad. I mean, they're down to 20-something in Cuba, or Bourbon, and 30-something in Cuba. Right, and then St. Clair, which was a thriving church a long time ago, even though they're kind of left wing of us, they're down to 20-something. They used to be over 100. Okay, Bourbon at one point when Zerpa was there, they were going to build a new church because they had so many people. They couldn't put them all in the building. They didn't want to go to 2 services, so they're going to build a new building. And then he took a call, and it's downhill from there out. So it's sad. It's nothing to rejoice in when fellow churches we're not competing with and we're working together. So it's sad to see it happen. But that's the state of the synod right now, at least Missouri District right now. Now, some churches, some of the big churches, because we're sitting at the table with my home church is St. Matthew and Lee Summit, and the pastor was there, and they have 900. They don't have the problems we have. They don't have any problem with attendance. They're building all the time. They own like a half a city block now. They keep adding on. So some of these churches, like the one in Raymore Peculiar too, that's 600 people. They got challenges, but not like we have, And we don't have these challenges, but other churches in our circuit do. Can you stay open another year is the challenge they have. We don't have those.
So the church where your dad had his memorial
Yeah.
service,
That's okay. Yeah, that's Missouri Synod, but not Missouri District. It's English District. When they started, Missouri District didn't want to support them, so they said, we'll just go English District, which, if you don't know any of that stuff, that's no big deal. But it's a thriving church, really thriving. It's 700-800 members there. Okay. Yeah.
where do they sit everyone?
Well, they have 3 services. They have a contemporary in the gym, and then they have 2 traditional in the sanctuary. And I don't even know if they have they have a Saturday night too. I forgot they have Saturday night also. Yeah, they have 4.
They're seating in the,
Oh yeah, it's not that big.
not much bigger than ours.
I know. You're right, because when they built it, that's what they expected. But so they have 4 services. They have a Saturday night, 2 on Sunday, and then 1 in the gym with the contemporary. Yeah, and they're thriving. So it's not bad everywhere. And those churches are full of kids. If you looked at the other thing, because they had a chart on this, most churches are 2/3 of the members are 65 or older. And if you added 50 to 65, then you're up to about 3/4 of the membership is that age. Okay, and that's every church. We're that way, actually, by the way. Okay, but that's every church. And those rural, and what particularly, it's the rural, small town churches are that way because young people are moving out, and so it's just the old people that want to stay there till they die. Because, hey, what's the smallest church in the Missouri Synod as far as a membership? Elk Prairie. They're down to 3. Because we had to give a report on them. I said, just ignore them, okay? We don't need to have a report on them. But they have 3 at Elk Prairie. Do you guys know that? Peace Lutheran in Elk Prairie is the mother church of all of the Rolla area, but it has 3 people left in it. Yeah. But they're consistent. They're not declining. They've been that way for a long time. No. They get students from the seminary, and all their offering does is pay the student. Okay, at least that's what I was told. I have no idea. It just said 3. It just said 3. And they used a digital hymnal like we used to use for their... Right, yeah. I know you probably are related to them. You guys are. No indoor plumbing in that church, too. Yeah, it's kind of fun. So can you imagine a student come out, okay, I'm hired to do a job. He come out there, and this is it, 3 people, maybe. They don't now? I didn't know that. Now, Redeemer Lutheran did their Christmas service at Elk Prairie, Christmas Day, and I guess they had a few out there. So that was kind of nice. All right, we'll get into our study now. I just thought that was interesting, the things I told you, but particularly the part that we're actually the model that they want to other churches, interdual parishes, saying you can make this happen. Okay, so that's kind of cool. All right, we're in Proverbs 25, verse 3. Okay, last time we did the really good one, what I thought was good, about the glory of God to conceal a matter and the glory of kings to seek it out. Okay, so this one is actually helpful because this kind of flows out of it, kind of not necessarily in the opposite way, but it flows out of it. All right, so it says, as the heavens are high and the earth is deep, so the hearts of kings are unsearchable. Okay, now this one, I really did not understand this one either before until we studied a lot now, and we already done this in Houston, so I have background on this now. But it's very, very helpful. Anybody want to venture a guess what they think it means?
You never know what the guy's thinking.
Why? And it's obviously not going to say a derogatory thing about the king. It's going to be a positive thing because he's the king. So why, you're right, why is it you don't know what he's thinking?
Because he's not, hopefully he's not selfish towards himself. He's thinking of the greater population, and that's not common.
That's not common because he's thinking of greater matters than the common person. That's the idea behind it. It's a good thing. He has much more serious and weighty matters to consider that the common person doesn't need to consider. This is why I would never want to be president. Even of a Missouri district, okay? I would never want to have that responsibility. It's bad enough having this responsibility, but you would never, why anyone would want that, I have no idea. Because the responsibilities you have are very, very weighty. And if you're meaning to be a godly king or ruler or person in that position, you take it even more seriously. You don't blow it off. And so it's a really serious matter. So I had a historical illustration because I just read a book at this time when I did this. It's an old book I had called Secret Weapons of World War II. Okay, anybody remember the how they broke the Japanese code and the Nazi code? Exactly. The Enigma was Japanese. Do you know what or was it the other way around? It was Ultra.
Well, Ultra and Enigma were the same.
Oh, it wasn't the same? Purple, okay. Okay, that was purple. Enigma was the Nazi one. Okay, but now, so I was reading up on this, okay? I'm glad you guys already know that, so you know some background of this. They broke it early. But what was the dilemma they found themselves in by having broke it? They couldn't tip their hand. So what did that mean? They had to let people die. Can you, I know, but no, seriously. I mean, so here's Churchill. They know the whole bombing plan of the Nazis in the Battle of Britain. They know exactly where they're coming every day. So some days they have to let them go through. Okay? And so one of the days was the day they bombed Coventry. And they knew it was happening. There's a cathedral in Coventry. Thousands of people died. And Churchill just had to watch it. Because he knew he could have stopped it, but he knew if he stopped it, they would have known they knew the code. And so they had to let it go. Can you imagine being in that position? That's what this verse is about. You, because you love your people, you're the prime minister trying to save your nation, and yet you have to watch thousands of people die and historic places be bombed to ruins, and you could have stopped it. But if you stopped it, it would mean more thousands would die later, right? And that was the same with the Japanese, too. They had to do the same thing with the Japanese, okay? Not necessarily because they were bombing places, but they had to let certain things go, knowing that American soldiers are going to die.
Well, the same thing was true of Truman and
Yes, the atomic bomb with Truman, exactly. Right. Did you want that responsibility on your shoulders? And see, that's what this is about. Those who have high positions of authority have weighty matters to consider. Okay, and they're very serious ones, and I have, like I said, I have plenty as a pastor, and as a pastor, you do have some that other people don't have, and they're eternal matters often, not just who lives and dies, which is bad enough, but they're eternal matters. That's, for example, do you remember that? Where is it? 2 Corinthians 12, when Paul gives a list of all the things he endured. I was beaten and robbed, shipwrecked, and all this. What was the last thing on that list? I actually don't have it on my head. Let's look it up. What was the last? Anybody know? If not, we're going to see if we can find it. I actually don't know exactly where it is. It's 2 Corinthians 11, not 12. It's verse 2 Corinthians 11:28. Okay, you can read it all before that, but it's like, okay, that's really not a big deal. Then I realize, and we actually, as a pastor, you realize this, or anyone who's a leader in a church, or anyone who has family who's kind of a wayward family members. Okay, it fits here too. 2 Corinthians 11:28 says, besides this, or besides everything else, I face daily the pressure of my concern for all the churches. Who is weak and I do not feel weak, who is led into sin and I do not inwardly burn. What is Paul saying? What does that mean? Do you know? He says, of all these troubles I endured, and he mentions all those shipwrecks and beatings and all stonings, this is the worst. I have to deal with knowing that some people are going to hell, and I'm trying to do everything I can to stop it, but it won't work. Some will go to hell. When you got that on your conscience, you can handle a personal beating, I think. I mean, I don't want to have to try to do that, but you can handle that probably better than the thought that someone you know and care for is actually going to hell. And you're trying to stop it. That's what he's saying. I do everything I can, but yet it's still not working. I can't save them all. Wasn't that Schindler's List? I didn't watch the movie, but wasn't that about Schindler's List, about saving all the Jews? At the end, he was just distraught because of the ones he couldn't save. Is that true? I didn't watch the movie, but someone told me that. I heard that's what it was, but at the end of his life, when they kind of interviewed him, he was kind of in tears because of the ones he couldn't save. Instead of thinking of all the ones that got saved, he was heartbroken over the ones he couldn't save. And that's what Paul's saying here. And so in a way, if you take the spiritual matter out of this verse in Proverbs 25:3, not just Churchill having to make those decisions and other people making decisions like that, it's actually anyone in a spiritual leadership position. And in your own home, it may be you, and not just pastor or an elder or something like that. It may be you, and it's that decision, like, what can I do? I can't do. I'm trying, but it's not working. And you are very, very much aware of what hell means. It's not, hey, just write them off. We lost another one. Not too bad. No, it means forever and ever eternal suffering. When you dwell on that, you can see why Paul says that. This is what bothers him more than anything, is that. And so that's what this one's about, that proverb. It's again, this section of this part of Proverbs is Hezekiah passing these things on to the future king, not Solomon. This is Hezekiah. Solomon wrote them, but Hezekiah is saying, these are very serious matters. And he was living at a time when the people were very wicked and rebellious, and he was the godly king. So it's kind of like, you see, these are weighty matters that we have to deal with. All right, so that was that one. I'll move on from there if you want to. Okay. Verses 4 and 5 to go together. Remove the dross from the silver, and out comes material for the silversmith. Remove the wicked from the king's presence, and his throne will be established through righteousness. Okay. How do you, I wrote okay. A ruler is only as good as the people who surround him. Ever heard of something like that? Or, a leader is only as good as the people who surround him. How does that apply here? That's the line I got from this.
Crosses the impurity, so if you take wicked out of being around the king, then
Right. Get rid of the wicked ones in your cabinet, in your advisory role or whatever. Get rid of the wicked ones, and you will thrive. If you allow them to remain for whatever reason, then you are hindering yourself. Okay? That's what, I mean, we can elaborate, I guess, but without, getting personal about presidents and stuff, but really, that's what this is about. If you're in any position of leadership, do not surround yourself with people that you know are schemers or deceitful or wicked or arrogant or boastful or what, a lot of these other things are out to advance themselves or anything like that. Surround yourself with people who are true leaders of the people. I mean, now I want to say, kind of name names in a good way. That's the original cabinet that Washington had, George Washington. I mean, he surrounded his people with the best people. They didn't all agree with each other, but the best people to make this nation get established. And Lincoln did the same thing. They were all his rivals, and they hated him at one time, but he realized, I don't care about what you think about me. Are you going to be able to do your job and do it well? And pretty much all of them did. One of them was kind of an arrogant guy, but Stanton, I think, or something like that. Okay, but the rest of them did their job well.
Well, and then a negative example is Rehoboam.
Rehoboam is the perfect negative, right. Perfect biblical negative example, right. Exactly, right. And because he did not surround himself with good advisors, lost his kingdom. 10/12 of his kingdom he lost. So again, this is, if you were ever into a position of a foreman, a head of a corporation or something like that, make sure the people next to you or working with you are good people. I mean, and I say godly, but in this case, not just godly, because they may not be Christians, but they can still be honest people, but people who actually are not just self-serving and self-seeking, trying to advance themselves. But are actually genuinely concerned about the company or whatever business that you have. So that's how that one works. It's a great proverb to keep in mind for those who are leaders. So again, this whole section all the way through the verse 27 of this chapter is really all about leadership roles. Okay, so if you're not in a leadership role, that may not apply so much to you. Next one, do not exalt yourself in the king's presence and do not claim a place among great men. It is better for him to say to you, come up here, than for him to humiliate you before a nobleman. All right. Now, Jesus has his own comment about this when he was at a house of a Pharisee, and he noticed how people were always, they were kind of vying for the seats of honor. Remember that? It's one of those, if you were there to watch it, it would kind of be humorous, you think, because these are the well-respected leaders, and they're all kind of, playing musical chairs, so to see who can get that one chair that is the seat of honor, because they all think they have it, should deserve it, okay? Or this is the disciples, right, arguing literally on Maundy, Thursday night, but other times too, who's the greatest? Arguing who's the greatest. And can you hear their comments? Hey, I'm Peter. Look at me. I don't know what maybe Nathaniel would have said or Thaddeus would have said or something like that, but they're all thinking they're the best. And they all deserve that seat of honor. But what is this getting at? When you're in the presence of the king, how much honor do you think you really have? Only that which he gives you. Okay, so don't be so arrogant as to exalt yourself and to think, hey, look at me, I'm so great. And the king says, no, I determine who's great. You don't. And you think you're the great one, you go down there. Okay, you're not with me. And now how humiliating would that be if you had asserted yourself that way, and then, of course, this is Haman now again, but have you exerted yourself that way and then got humiliated by the king? Because just to be in the presence of the king in that day, now today we probably don't care to be in the presence of a royalty or dignitary or president or anything like that, but to be in the presence of a king in that day would be the greatest honor you could have in earthly life. And then to be humiliated because you were so arrogant that you thought you could assert yourself, that would be the most disgraceful, humiliating thing you could have happen in your life. So don't seek your own glory and honor. Seek only that which is given by the king. So for us, what position do we hold? Yeah, in the world, but what position do we hold in the kingdom? Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance. Inheritance belongs to a son or daughter, right? Take your inheritance. We actually hold the highest rank possible. In fact, look at this one. Ephesians 2, I think. You know, these things pop in your head sometimes. You got to make sure you got the right one. Ephesians 2, might be 1. It's before the 8 and 9 verses. Yeah, Ephesians 2, verse 4. But because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ even when we were dead in transgressions. This is by grace you have been saved. And then in verse 6 it says, and God raised us up with Christ and seated us with him in the heavenly realms in Christ Jesus. Actually it's present tense, by the way. It's not future tense. Where are we seated as far as God is concerned? With Christ in the heavenly realms. Why do you need to ever exalt yourself? You can't get higher than that. And it's not anything you could ever earn. And the more you try to earn it, the less you have it, I guess. But it's something that is by God's grace given to you. And therefore, we all have it, so no one can ever say, I'm better than anybody else. Because all Christians have it. No matter what rank you have in this world, and even within the church, no matter what status you have, we're all seated with Christ in the heavenly realms. And I bet most of us, all of us, don't believe that. Because we don't. If we did, our whole lives would be different. Because I'm not saying we don't believe it. We just don't remember it. We don't take it to heart. We're not serious about realizing who I am. And because we don't realize who we are, we have to defend ourselves. We have to build ourselves up. We have to do whatever to make sure I get the respect I deserve. You don't have to do anything. You got it by God's grace in Christ, so you don't need to do anything. So this would make for the most stable, secure, contented life you could possibly imagine if you realize that no matter what happens to you in this life, how humiliated you may actually ever become in this life, you are seated with Christ in the heavenly realms, and nothing can change that. Okay? So just consider that, and then this proverb will fit with you perfectly. Okay, so moving on. The next one, I don't know why the verse starts actually at the end of the verse 7, it really is verse 8. What you have seen with your eyes, do not bring hastily to court. For what will you do in the end if your neighbor puts you to shame? All right, we want to try to figure out what this was talking about? Why would someone bring something hastily to court against his neighbor? Yeah, they lack discretion and discernment, and how does that apply because of your neighbor? What are you really thinking about your neighbor? Yeah, you think poorly of your neighbor. So the discretion is, I don't know if that's what you meant. You lack discretion on, just because I don't like my neighbor, do I really want to do this? Because if I really do this, it says, what will you do in the end if your neighbor puts you to shame? Okay, so just kind of think like this. You have such a negative opinion of your neighbor. Doesn't have to be your next door neighbor, of course. Remember, it can be anybody, okay? You have such a negative opinion of your neighbor that you hear the latest hearsay on your neighbor, okay? And then you start, not literally bring it to court, but you bring it to the court of public opinion. How's that? Say it that way. Okay, you bring it out to everybody else. And that this is who this person is. This is what the person is, okay? It's Nancy Pelosi who being impeachment charges on Trump because he was in collusion with the Russians. Okay? And then what comes out later? What a joke. And you knew it the whole time it was a joke. It wasn't true. Now, I don't care what you think about Trump. I'm just saying that was an actual statement of fact that it's not true. And how bad do you now look? How shameful do you appear because you just had it in for somebody? You would do whatever it took to do something bad against that person, but in the end, it turns around, and I didn't turn around and get her back, but in the end, it comes back to you. So for us, then that's the idea. If you have such a strong negative opinion of somebody, you better keep it to yourself. And then you better change it. Okay? Well, you better change it, but do not bring it hastily to the court of public opinion. Because in the end, it may come back to get you because you may say something that is not true. It's hearsay, and it will come back, and then you are shamed because now you broadcast this to everybody, and now how do you look? Look like a fool, right? And look like a bitter, angry fool, right? Out to get somebody. No, take that off about me. Yeah, you're right. You're right, though. You're right. You understand, though, right? I know you're being facetious, but you just got to. You got to show some restraint. But still, again, that's not the whole answer. The whole answer is you got to check your heart. Do you love your enemies? Okay, you don't. If you're doing that, I'm just saying you don't if you do that. Okay, so the attitude is now, or the instruction is how do you change that attitude so that you can have love for your enemy? And how you change that attitude is like usually you're out to get your enemy because they done something to you, or they just done something that's bad and you don't like them to get by with it. But you remember the previous verse. You're sitting with Christ in the heavenly realms. What difference does it make to you? You're okay. Okay, Joe, comment.
Yeah, I think that's what your eyes have seen. So I think it's talking about more than just opinion.
It is. I was trying to make modern.
Talking about things that, at least from your perspective, what you've seen,
Yeah.
and go to court with that. Well, it doesn't. It's in the Old Testament, but it doesn't talk about your neighbor being a believer or not. But in today's world, is your neighbor a Christian?
Yeah.
Christian, they're a Christian, and you take them to court over something might be very
Petty or insignificant, right? Right.
either way. But how does that project the image of Christ and the image of
Exactly.
Christians to the rest of the world?
Right.
And I think that's
Okay, it's good that you said that because I didn't talk about this. This is Paul in 1 Corinthians 6. Why are you taking your fellow brothers to court? Right? Why are you suing your fellow Christians? How does this appear to the world? I mean, you can't even settle your own differences. I mean, you look shameful. And so what is this bringing to the world is the appearance that Christians hate each other. They're mean, divisive. Of course, churches split all the time, right? But and that we're backstabbers and like the rest of the world. And so why would I want to be a Christian? Because you're no better than we are. So that's a good illustration like that. All right. So yeah. So don't bring hastily to court just because you have something against somebody, and don't judge just by what you initially see. Remember that there's that one commercial. Did I talk about it here, or was it in Houston? It says, "What are you seeing?" And this gal's walking down the sidewalk on her phone talking, and a guy with a hooded sweatshirt kind of staring at her, and she's walking, and then she turns and she walks this way, and he rushes up and he grabs her purse. You seen that commercial? Okay, and they stop it right there. And so what do you think? Okay, and your natural inclination is he's going to mug her. But what is he really doing? Yeah, he's saving her life because she's walking right in front of a bus. And she's not paying attention because she's on her cell phone, and he saves her life. So it says, see, you don't always know what all the details, all the facts, so make sure you don't rush to any hasty decisions. All right, so that's a really good one. Again, so this section I think is really, this next one goes, argue your case with the neighbor. Do not betray another man's confidence, or he who hears it may shame you, and you will never lose your bad reputation. All right? You want to explain this one? Because this one probably, I'm not saying you've probably done it, it's a temptation to do it, and you got to catch yourself. Especially for me as a pastor, because I have things I know in confidence that I got to be very careful that you just don't, in the heat of a moment, because you're upset about something, blurt out something. Right? Because that's what this is about, right? This is about something about other people. And then and you get in discussion, and then you actually fall into the trap of arguing with somebody. And so now your emotions are starting to take over. And then you blurt out something that was spoken to you in confidence or that you knew of in secret that no one else really should know. And you blurt it out. It's true. You're not lying. But what's the result? Yeah.
It'd be like saying that you did this, and I know you did it because you did it to Joe.
Yeah, yeah, he told me so. Yeah, right.
And now the person that's accused, rightly so, maybe, but still, he's
Look.
gonna go to jail and say, "I told you this."
Yeah, right. And so that the person who did the whole thing is the one who got in, who betrayed the secret, is the one who suffers in the end, right? Yeah, and that's so true. It's so true. It's, and not that this one's getting about that, but in that the whole point of another reason, not the whole point, another reason why you don't get drunk, because your tongue gets loose, and you start saying things that you shouldn't be saying. Especially if you're a person in position of power and authority, if you get a person drunk and you can get them going, they may blurt out a lot of secrets that they're not necessarily about people, about company secrets or this or that and other things. So there's reasons why you have to learn to keep a confidence.
Way too fast, it's been forgiven by somebody else.
Yeah.
Now you-
Yeah, you stir up something that has long been settled down. Exactly. That's a good point. Yeah, right. So you see how that one works? So now let's get to a good one. So those are all bads now. So a good one, verse 11. A word aptly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver. Okay, now I did not find, he didn't say anything, in other words, because it's the only place I know where to search, why that is the context or the analogy or metaphor, I guess, whatever it's called. Said apples of gold in settings of silver. I'm guessing that was something that was very special to make an apple of gold in a setting of silver. I don't know what that was. He doesn't say that there was something historic about it. It's not like it's an idol. It's not idolatry. But it's something that would be a precious pearl or priceless diamond that we might have. Okay, that's the context. So what's like that? A word aptly spoken. Now, I didn't really think about this before until I thought about it some more, is that why does he equate a word, well first of all, what does it mean, a word aptly spoken? Not just building up, but what does aptly though mean? Appropriately at the right time. Right? I mean, at that moment when things are not really looking good or something like that, you have that word that builds up. Okay? Now, all right, so the point is, so that's what that's about. How is that like apples of gold and settings of silver? Two things.
Something so valuable that it sustains life.
Yes.
Gold and silver.
Right. It's very priceless, okay? Very valuable. That's one part. The other part is it's very rare. You don't find apples of gold and settings of silver just at Walmart, is the idea. So, and you don't just find these things laying around somewhere. You don't find a person who is that skilled that he can speak a word, the appropriate word at the right time. It takes skill to, not everyone has this ability, by the way, and it is a gift, but how does that gift get enhanced, or how can you maybe try to nurture such a gift within you? Through the Bible, discretion, discernment, insight, as we're reading it here. So already some of the things we've been told, don't take something hastily to court, don't exalt yourself. These are already things in the negative, but so as we keep going through all of Proverbs, all the Bible, that's how you learn more and more to find that appropriate word to speak. Because the appropriate word to speak is going to come from God. So you got, now I know in business it can be something else, but in these situations we're probably thinking of, situations of crisis or stress or strife, or it doesn't have to be a fight between people. You need a word of reconciliation. It could be someone in deep depression, on the verge of suicide, or various things. It can be a lot of different things, and God has words to speak. And we don't always have those. And so that's why our study of God's Word and the application of that will make it more and more that we will find the word to aptly speak at the right time. So that's why I thought this was a great one for us too. Yeah. Right. Oh, yeah, that they're going to something like that coming up real quick. Let's keep moving because there is something that fits that really, really well. So keep that thought. We'll be next week. Next week I'll be late because we have voters meetings, so I'll be a little bit late. But
In the notes below, the apples and gold and setting the silver is metaphor for jewelry, which from that perspective, if you had that word, then it would almost be like from the perspective of everybody else, that person has wisdom. Like
yeah,
you
yeah.
have been, and the next sets are about wearing something like a ring.
Yeah. Right.
Not only are they good things, but they're not something you set in the corner, but that's like almost
To display.
on you as a person after, like from the perspective of everyone else.
Yeah, and you shouldn't keep it. You shouldn't hide it. You should display it. Yeah, that's good too. Yeah, so the person who has the word, the ability to do that, should use that ability, that gift, and use it wisely and appropriately. And in so doing, you enrich other people's lives. Right, so that's really good. So the next one actually is flows from this one too, and then we'll go with this one. Like an earring of gold or an ornament of fine gold is a wise man's rebuke to a listening ear. The emphasis is to a listening ear. So, how do I explain that one? How would you, see if you can explain it for me. I can just tell you, but I was hoping to try to draw it for you.
It's just the opposite. You just said the person that has the ability to say things correctly, but the person that's giving the
Okay, that's it.
should be able to interpret it.
Are you a person who wisely hears a word? Okay, and now in this case, the word is not encouragement. Yeah, because the key is that the word is a rebuke. Yeah, we'll hear a word of encouragement. The word is a rebuke. So a wise person will listen to a rebuke, and that's like wearing an earring of gold or ornament of fine gold. Because a rebuke from a wise person, is that going to ruin you?
How many times all of us can take back how many times in our lives, if we had taken the advice given and
Yeah.
properly given, we would have saved ourselves a whole lot of grief.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, yeah, how many teenagers says, I'm just going to live and learn? It's like, really? I mean, how stupid is that when I could give you the advice now so that you don't have to learn from the hard way? You can learn before you experience the hard way, okay? And not experience the hard way. But that's it, right? And often, why do we not listen to those rebukes? Because we think we know more. And I want to be my own person, leave me alone, let me do my own thing. As opposed to say, no, I'm humble. I know I don't know enough, so tell me what I need to know. And, yeah, I know. Right. And then sometimes you get old and crotchety. And Bev's not here, so okay. So call her out, right? I know. You get old and crotchety, and then I'm not going to listen to anybody then. But you're right. Hopefully, as you age, you realize not how much you know, but how little you know. And you're willing to take a rebuke from somebody else.
German proverb, too old, too soon, too smart, too late.
Too old, too soon, too smart, too late. That's right. Can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? Okay? But that's what this is about. It's a really good one, is saying, are you a person who will take a necessary rebuke and instead of getting defensive about it, say thank you? Because most of us will get defensive. In our insecurity, we'll get defensive, as opposed to saying thank you. Now, maybe later down the line when we learn the hard way, it's like, yeah, thank you, I should have taken your advice. But say it now because you realize I needed that. So thank you. But our natural reaction, really, seriously, all of us are, because of our sinful nature. Sometimes we may have controlled better, but our natural reaction is to get defensive when someone tries to correct us. We all do it. I mean, I know I do. I mean, we all do it. Okay, the more secure you get in realizing that you're exalted with Christ in heavenly places, the less you will get defensive and realize, okay, I know I need improvement. And so if you can help me improve, I'll gladly listen. Now, make sure you're listening to a wise person. That's the other emphasis, a wise man's rebuke, not just a fool's man's, but a wise man's rebuke is worth listening to. All right, we'll have to quit with that then. Okay, so I hope you like these, because I'm actually finding that I'm getting really more excited as I do this Proverbs study, because I'm learning a lot more now. The more, and it helps me because I do it twice. So you guys only get it once. If you come to church in Houston, then do it there, and then come here, you get it twice. So it kind of percolates more inside of you, and you're just like, oh, first time I taught it, maybe I didn't get at 10 o'clock or maybe a little bit earlier. I don't have anything to report there, so it may not take too long. All right, so we'll pick it up there next week. Sign-up sheet for the soup suppers it's coming up in 2 Wednesdays. So if you want to help out with that, the soup supper sign-up sheet is up there starting on Valentine's Day, Ash Wednesday. Let's close now with prayer. Most blessed Lord, we are grateful for your word. We recognize we do need your word and the advice, the wisdom you give us through your word. We pray that you will help us to be both people who are willing to hear a wise rebuke and not be defensive about it, but people who take it to heart and take it seriously and learn from it. And that you will also help us to be wise people who know how to speak a word aptly, and that we may have a genuine, deep, sincere concern for others, that we will express our concern for them in your wisdom and in your compassion. We ask this through Jesus our Savior. Amen.